I'll focus on the strategic gains for respecting the rule of law, and I'll also highlight the ways and means, focusing on Malawi Defense Force, on how we ensure accountability for the security sector in Malawi. So just to give you a prologue, most of the colleagues in the room will agree with me that the notion of rule of law and security sector governance are not taught during our basic military or police enforcement training. So rule of law is not, does not form the part of basic military training. You only come to know about it during professional military education, like the one you are attending now. You heard from Dr. Kelly that the rule of law, in simple terms, entails that no one is above the law, or no institution is above the law. You'd recall that many militaries have regarded themselves to be above the law. But look, citizens are supposed to be compliant with the law, and they are supposed to respect the law. Likewise, the military, who are citizens first, are also supposed to respect the rule of law. So no one should be above the law, and no institution is above the law. Now, I want to look at the intersections of the rule of law and the military. And from my standpoint, I highlight three aspects. So the first is the concept of civilian control of the military. For most of us who come from democratic states, you recall that the Constitution provides for an aspect where the military is under the civilian authorities. So that's the principle of civil control of the military. You'd see that the president is supposed to be the commander-in-chief, and the president is supposed to be a civilian. So the aspect of having a civilian commander-in-chief is part of entrenching the concept of civilian control of the military. Apart from that, commanders, including the chiefs of civilian, so the aspect of having a civilian commander-in-chief is part of entrenching the concept of civilian control of the military. Apart from that, commanders, including the chiefs of the defense forces, are accountable to a civilian minister of defense. So again, that's an aspect of entrenching civilian control of the military. And added to that is the aspect of parliamentary oversight of the armed forces. So you have a committee of members of parliament which oversees the operations of both the military as well as the police. So that's the principle of parliamentary oversight of the armed forces. And then the Constitution will provide for the roles and functions of the military and also of the police. And that is the constitutional mandate. So if you respect the rule of law, it means you have to perform your functions and responsibilities in accordance with the functions that have been stipulated in the Constitution. If you go beyond that, then you'll be acting what we call ultra vires. So that's, in simple terms, the explanation of the rule of law. The second aspect where the rule of law intersects with the military or the law enforcement agencies would be where we have civilian military relations. Focusing on the military, the notion of civil military relations is an interaction over the military and the civilians. Civilians here would entail the civil authorities as well as the general public. So professional militaries are supposed to be subordinate to civil authorities, but they are also supposed to interact with the civilians. So the form of interactions are formal as well as informal. Then within the concept of civil-military relations, there is a notion which we call coup-proofing dilemma. So this is the situation where you see that political leaders have a dilemma whether they should strengthen the military to be able to face an aggression, but also to be able to tackle the challenges they face, or they need to keep it weak. So the reason why they want to keep it weak is that they are afraid that the military may engage in a coup d'etat. So that's why you don't want to make it strong. The strategy, one of the strategies to overcome the coup-proofing dilemma is to have professional militaries. And professional militaries are supposed to be accountable to the people. They're supposed to be egalitarian. So they are accountable to the people. They are what we call interdependent militaries. And professional militaries are the ones that respect the rule of law. And then the third intersection is the notion of security sector governance. So security sector governance is it refers to the procedures and the processes of decision making within the security sector. So you need to have leaders who are able to make decisions, who are able to deploy the armed forces. So that, from my standpoint, would be the one of the examples of the intersection of the rule of law and the military. Next slide, please. So let me just give you a snapshot of the oversight institutions of the military in Malawi. So we do have a common understanding, and I'm pretty certain this is also your perspective, that the military personnel are first and foremost citizens. And as citizens, they take oath to be military. And as part of their mandate is to defend the country and its people. Hence, they are supposed to do that in accordance with the law. In the Constitution of the Republic of Malawi, particularly in Section 12, subsection 1, you see that a principle that says no institution or person shall stand above the law. So that's how the rule of law, or the principle of rule of law, has been explained in the Constitution of the Republic of Malawi. And I'm pretty certain that you also have a similar provision in our respective constitutions. If you look at Section 160, subsection 1 of the Constitution of the Republic of Malawi, you see that it says the Malawi Defense Force shall operate at all times under the direction of civil authorities. So that is the principle of civilian control of the military. Then we have a president who is a civilian, and that president is supposed to be a commander-in-chief and has the ultimate responsibility of the Malawi Defense Force. So this has been outlined in our constitution, particularly in Section 78 and Section 161 of the constitution, respectively. Now, the deployment and operations of the Malawi Defense Force, or MDF in short, are subject to the scrutiny of the Defense and Security Committee of from office of senior officers. So that's an explanation of the principle of parliamentary oversight of the military. Next slide, please. So what are the strategic gains for respecting the rule of law? Number one, I think, of course, the picture is now coming out clearly that if a military respects the rule of law, then it will be professional. So professional militaries respect the rule of law. Number two is economy of effort. Because you are complying with the rule of law, that means you are spending your energy on what you are mandated to do, not what you are mandated not to do. So economy of effort is one of the strategic gains for respecting the rule of law. And the other aspect would be gaining the trust and respect of citizens. Because just like any soccer team or football team that respects, that is disciplined, they have few yellow cards, they commit less fouls, and the fans respect them for that professionalism. So they have the trust and respect of citizens as well as the opponents. So if you respect the rule of law, you'd be able to gain the trust and the respect of citizens. But also because of that trust, the representatives of the people who are parliamentarians would be able to give sufficient funding for the defense budget for the militaries, because the military has economy of effort, because the military is trusted and respected by the citizens, and the benefit will be gaining sufficient funding for defense operations. The other aspect is that of efficiency and effectiveness. Dr. Kelly alluded to this, but just to expound a little more how the logic works. So you see that respect for the rule of law contributes to ethical governance, which is key for peace and stability and therefore development. So if there is peace in a country, that means there is the defense force or the military is not that busy fighting wars. And in doing so, they're able to do trainings properly. They're able to deploy in operations that are a necessity. In so doing, their operations are efficient and effective. The other aspect is increased discipline and morale of troops. I alluded to an example of a soccer team, which is discipline. So if the military respects the law, the morale of the troops is high, because they know that they cannot be forced to take illegal orders, for example, and they are disciplined. And then with regards to national security, you see that militaries or security organs that respect the rule of law would be able to stay in their lane. They'll stay the course. So there is division of labor. The police will be able to do what they're mandated to do. The military will also be able to do what they're mandated to do. There is no competition amongst or between the security organs. In any event, there is cooperation. So there is a clear division of labor. Now, the other aspect is that because the military is respected, even the police is respected by the citizens. So the net gain will be you have discipline, because it is a symbol of patriotism, because it is a sense of pride to the nation. Next slide, please. Now, let me just highlight the aspects of accountability of the military to citizens. You heard Dr. Kelly talking about those dimensions of accountability, the ombudspersons, the anti-corruption commissions, the media, the citizens. So that framework that Dr. Kelly gave you can be categorized into three. So the first is what is called vertical accountability, which, as you're aware, is the notion of power to the people. So the people, the citizens, are able to express their power through a ballot. So that's vertical accountability, bottom up kind of accountability. So you also saw from the examples that I gave from Malawi that the buck stops at the commander-in-chief. So if the military in Malawi misbehaves, then people will be able to express their anger through the ballot by voting a government in power at that particular time out of power. So that's vertical accountability. The other aspect is that of horizontal accountability. So this is where you have checks and balances of the three branches of government, but added to that, within the executive, you have organs or state oversight organs such as ombudspersons, the Human Rights Commission, and then in the legislative part of government, you have the Parliamentary Committee on Defense and Security, And then obviously in the judicial branch of government, you have the courts. So that's the state, rather that's the horizontal form of accountability. Now, the third aspect of accountability is the diagonal accountability. So this is the informal. I think Dr. Kelly talked about the formal and informal. So diagonal accountability is the informal aspect of accountability. And from my perspective, is the most important kind of accountability because you have non-state actors who demand answers for acts and omissions of their security or their military or indeed their commander-in-chief. So the media and the civil society organizations, including the grassroots organizations, are key for executing diagonal accountability. In a situation where you have state capture, we heard in South Africa was involved in a state capture, and several other countries on the continent of Africa and of course beyond are involved in state capture. So where you have state capture, the horizontal form of accountability may not work. That's why the vertical complemented by the diagonal accountability will be regarded as key. But suffice to say that diagonal accountability is informal and hence we haven't really put much emphasis on it. My argument and my point is that we need to amplify diagonal accountability because more often than not, the civil society, the media will be independent. They won't be affected or compromised by state capture. Hence, they are a very instrumental component of accountability. So why do we need to respect the rule of law? The obvious answer is that you have mutual trust between the citizens as well as the security actors. But now, my argument is that if you look at contemporary threats to security in our countries, you note that most of them are human security challenges. Most countries in Africa do not have threats from the outside or external threats. So aggression has really declined. But most of the challenges we face are human security challenges. And these will require a whole of society approach. And because of that, you need to inculcate trust between the security actors and the citizens. But also, our militaries are involved in operations which we call military aid to civil authorities. And because we are supporting civil authorities, we need to earn their trust. Just like you go to a barber who you trust. So the military cannot be saving civil authorities who they do not trust. Likewise, the civil authorities may not welcome the military. You remember the concept of coup-proofing dilemma? Yeah, so they can't accept support from the military they don't trust. So because of that, we need to build trust. And to build trust, we need to respect the rule of law. In my country, Malawi, we have a problem of undocumented immigrants. So they have infiltrated the country to the extent that there is also a xenophobic tendency because most of the undocumented immigrants are very good businessmen. They are able to make money more than the citizens. So for you to be able to care with the aspect of undocumented immigrants, you need information from the people. Hence, you need to have their trust. And then talking about undocumented immigrants, some of them are even extremists. Malawi is borders with Cabo Delgado in Mozambique. As you're aware, there are terrorist activities in Cabo Delgado. The good news is that the Southern Africa Development Community Force, what we call the SADC Intervention Force, is doing a very good job in Cabo Delgado. Now, the challenge is that the terrorists from Cabo Delgado are retreating, coming to Malawi. So they are infiltrating the general public. Now, for the military to be able to notice the extremists, they need to have eyes and ears on the ground. Now, you can only have eyes and ears on the ground if you have respect, or if you have trust of the whistleblowers. Hence, we need to have the trust. We need to respect the rule of law. I talked about xenophobia, which is related to the infiltration of extremists and illegal immigrants. Now, the other aspect is that there is now an advent of artificial intelligence, technological developments. And while the military is also making headway in terms of developments in artificial intelligence, but you agree with me that the civilian space is more developed in terms of artificial intelligence than the military. Now, for the military to be able to tap the expertise from the civilian space or the civilian industry, you need to have their trust. And you can only have trust if you have or respect rule of law. And then the new laws, which we call green violence. Green violence is referred to, environmental degradation, poaching, and etc. So countries like Zambia, Botswana, even South Africa, Malawi are heavily involved. Their militaries are heavily involved in anti-poaching operations. And again, you need to have eyes and ears on the ground to be able to give you information about poachers. The other aspect is that of grand corruption, which has compromised other security agencies. In Malawi, for example, the police is rated as one of the most corrupt institutions, to the extent that even in terms of internal security operations. So because of that, for the military in Malawi to sustain the trust of the people, they need to respect the rule of law. Next slide, please. Now, the Malawi Defense Force has touted itself as a defender of the defenseless, because you saw, I think most of the slides that I've given you, you see the Malawi Defense Force within, the midst of a crowd of civilians. So we've been regarded as a defender of the defenseless. We've attained this accolade because in 2012, for example, we upheld the constitutional order. So what happened in 2012, in April 2012, is that the incumbent president at that time died while he was in office. And his brother, who was a mere minister, wanted to take over power because the vice president was kicked out of the ruling political party at that time. So he thought that he was the heir to the throne. But now, because one of the mandates of the defense force, or the Malawi Defense Force, is to uphold constitutional order. So because of the professional military education we've gained, especially from the US and of course the United Kingdom, we're able to advise the vice president at that time that as far as the constitution of Malawi is concerned, you are the one who is supposed to take over power. So we were able to uphold constitutional order, and the president at that time, Dr. Joyce Banda, was able to assume power, and obviously being Commander-in-Chief of Malawi Defense Force. The other aspect where the Malawi Defense Force has earned the accolade of Defender of the Defenseless is the protection of civil and political rights, especially in 2019, where the election, which we had, the presidential election we had in May 2019, was found to be unfair, was found to be rigged. So the Defense Force had to come in to support the citizens who were protesting on the street. They could not allow the police to come and protect them because they thought the police were compromised. And added to that, the Defense Force was able to defend or provide protection to the judges who were hearing a case relating to annulment of those fraud elections. So we were able to do that. And apart from that, the Malawi Defense Force has established several companies For example, the engineers construction company, which is able to provide infrastructure, build bridges, roads in rural or remote areas in Malawi. Because the construction industry is regarded to be corrupt, and to the extent that the Defense Force has been trusted as one of the most clean organizations in the country. So the Engineers Construction Company Limited is doing a good job in that regard. And we've also established an agricultural production company limited for several reasons. We want to provide employment to the youth, because we have youth barge in the country, but also the economy of Malawi is agro-based. So we thought the military should provide support, should contribute to the economic development of the country. We also have sports and culture initiatives, which have included, for example, you have a policy where if you join as a second lieutenant, you are posted away from your region or where you come from. And because of that, you're able to have intermarriages, you are able to participate in sports with civilians, civil military relations, and that has also promoted trust between the military and the citizens. We have a public information office which provides information. We answer questions every time civilians or citizens who have questions regarding any issue relating to the Defense Force. We try as much as possible to be transparent. And then the Malawi Defense Force, because of its expertise, is involved in dissemination of the law of armed conflict. You recall that Article 8 of Additional Protocol 1 of the Geneva Convention requires dissemination of international humanitarian law, both, especially in peacetime, because you don't teach law of war during armed conflict. And because of expertise, we've been able to go beyond the military to go to universities and the media to teach them IHM. And also we respect the rule of law in the Defense Force. I've given you the examples, and we always believe in subordination to civilian authority. So all these items have assisted us to be to earn the accolade of being defenders of the defenseless. Now, let me just highlight some of the key points, key takeaways from my presentation. So the first is that democratic oversight and accountability of the security sector is at the heart of security sector governance. Secondly, the rule of law and accountability for the security sector is necessary for local ownership and mutual trust, as well as respect between the security actors and the citizens who they're supposed to protect. And then multi-level monitoring and accountability, that is to say vertical, horizontal, and diagonal accountability, enhance respect of rule of law. And diagonal accountability is key to building trust between the security sector and the people they're supposed to protect and save.